Good morning. It's exciting to see all of you guys out there. And Laura's presentation was like a little primer. I'm going to add a little bit more, and then we're going to go a little bit more deeper with a little panel. But just out of curiosity, just kind of looking out at the room, how many of you guys have already been involved in the A Project Partners project with the district? Raise your hands high. Pretty good chunk of the room. So you guys are already on the path to collaboration. I have an intro joke. You know, engineers jokes, those are really bad. It's an engineer and geomorphology joke. So just to get us started, an engineer and a geomorphologist go into the field together to observe a severely burned watershed. So the engineer says, look at this watershed. These hydrophobic soils will massively increase runoff and downstream flooding. And don't even get me started about the hill slope and gully erosion. The geomorphologist looks at the engineer with a Cheshire cat smile. My sediments, exactly. Am I booed off the stage already? Well, it's been almost 2 years since I've done a presentation. I think the last time was a early version of this for the Learning Community Advisory Council that Laura and I had talked about putting together for a couple years and made happen. And that the whole point of that group is collaboration within the industry to improve the performance and the outcomes on stormwater and river projects. So at that time, my mindset was a little different than it was now. I had just gotten back from an amazing trip to Thailand. In Myanmar, we had just wrapped up the 2013 flood recovery program, and I was working on wrapping up the Colorado Disaster Recovery Lessons Learned book, working with Katie Yacht and Michael Blazewicz, which really was a compendium for 6 years worth of knowledge and experience in flood recovery. So at that time, on a regular basis, I was thinking about where my career had been since stepping into that flood recovery effort. And I wanted desperately to share with the community the experiences I had, along with all of the suffering as well that I had endured, and bring all that forward. So, you know, although we had learned a ton about disaster recovery, planning, design, and construction, what was on the forefront of my mind at that time was collaboration. How collaboration had changed the program, how collaboration had changed the outcome on each and every project. So there was momentum. We really started, things were kind of struggling along with collaboration, and as we moved through the program, we got a ton of momentum. And we wanted to bring that forward into the community. So, the alternative presentation title is Collaboration 101, or more specifically, how to create a community built on collaboration, generosity, creativity, and innovation while not bulldozing everyone around you. I'm not sure that this figure is a particularly good example of collaboration. Instead, it looks like a lot of accidents about to happen, and certainly there's some OSHA violations going on there. But the thought behind it is just because we think we're good at collaboration doesn't mean we necessarily are. As I move through the presentation today and circle back, I would like you guys to think about some questions for yourselves. Am I good at collaboration? And now the second question, which is even more important, does my definition of collaboration really mean I'm good at coordinating and coordination with people? Or am I regularly seeking others' input, their knowledge and experience and creativity to improve projects? And finally, when do I involve those people? Is it at all phases of the project so that I don't miss opportunities, or am I limiting my exposure to them? So I'm going to start with a moment of vulnerability. I am not particularly good at collaboration. I have a strong desire to improve, but my mindset continuously takes me back and regresses kind of back to my old ways of thinking. But here's a secret, not only for collaboration, but for all things in life. Being mindful of what we are good at or not good at is the starting point for change. So if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. Anyone who knows me, especially from the first 10 years of my career, which there are several of you in the room that know me from that time, knew that I was a lone wolf. I liked working alone. I liked working independently. The times when I had delegated or shared work, I got burned by it. I bet you we've all been there. And you know, I haven't changed much, honestly. What's changed is my understanding of what the limitations are that go along with being a lone wolf. I don't have the talent stack of everybody in this room or everything that's necessary on a project. And so while I might be able to deliver a good project, probably I'm not alone gonna deliver a great project. And I'm gonna have missed opportunities if I don't include others. So the takeaway here isn't just about a big project or a big program, but instead how far we can take any specific project, small or large, in achieving multiple goals and outcomes. So thrashing out new ideas at the beginning, working through alternatives and details in the middle, kicking the tires and making adjustments before the end. Two critical elements of collaboration: our everyday interactions and practices, and our attitude and mindset. So you might think of these as two different things. One of them being operational, how we actually work and interact with others, how we do things, and personal, how we as individuals approach our work, and most importantly, one another. So who are we as a community? When I started in the Denver community, I felt like a lot of my projects were an engineer, maybe a landscape architect. I'm not talking about, like survey and geotech, those things are kind of a given, but that was it. Like really, we were doing projects and we were doing project designs with this small group. Well, our community has come along a long way. And now when we work on a project, even small ones, we can be working with landscape architects and urban planners, environmental scientists, river specialists, geomorphologists, so many different levels of expertise and so many different ways of looking at a project. And now we're not only working with contractors in construction, we're working with them in design through the project partners process. And I think all of us have come to the realization that we need to involve stakeholders more and more in our projects and be communicating with the public about what we're doing. So we have to work with facilitators and folks that are experts in public communication and explaining complex ideas. So these are the types of things that we need to be thinking about and the expertise that we're bringing in. Our community is a big one. So, what does the public think of us? They think of us as scientists and engineers who like to do math and do some obscure things. But how do we think of ourselves? And I think we as a community think of ourselves as creatives with a purpose. So what's our purpose? Part of that purpose is to protect life and property and the environment as we work in our communities. We want to create spaces where the public can interact with nature, to create spaces that will reflect the natural environment and are pleasing to look at, and to apply our knowledge of science in creative and innovative ways to solve problems. So this quote's from Seth Godin, who's one of my all-time favorite authors, but I think it relates to who we are as a community. We want to solve interesting problems for people who care. And really where we get to with all this is we change our thinking about a project being another job, right? Quote, another job. Instead, we start to think about each project as, what a chance. What can we achieve? What's the best possible outcome for this project? So if we start thinking about things in those terms, if we start thinking about projects as what a chance, not only for us, but in particular our clients and our entire community, then there's shifts we need to make in our way of thinking. So I'm going to go through a few of those shifts. These are kind of just examples, but it kind of shows you the difference between a collaborative community or open-minded community and a closed community, kind of the old way of doing things. And one is a focus on growing knowledge, understanding, and it looks like I cut it off. and experience. But what that comes down to is a desire to see the community improve and my peers succeed, not just me. We want to see everybody improve. On the kind of closed-minded community was focused on growing business, and that plays out as a hyper-competitive, sometimes adversarial mindset where we're kind of a I want to get mine mindset and is not productive for collaboration. So back to what Laura said about failure, a collaborative mindset seeks not only to share our successes, which we're pretty good at that, right? But our failures to the broader community. So what we're trying to do with that is not only make the same mistakes ourselves again, we want to help our clients, we want to help our peers in the community to not make those mistakes either. On the closed community side, we don't want to share our failures. But why is that? Because right now we feel a lot of judgment when we share failures, and instead we have to make a shift. So I think what's important for us all is to make that shift in mindset about failure from one of judgment to one of learning and compassion. A collaborative mindset seeks to share new ideas and techniques within the community. This is where success stories can be turned into how-to workshops. A great example of this is the Stream Academy and what they're doing in seeking to improve knowledge, understanding, and skill sets within our river and stormwater community. A closed-minded mindset thinks, this thing I created is mine, and it's proprietary, and I'm going to keep using it to my advantage to win every project I possibly can. I've been there, I've done it, right? I mean, it's one of those things about being a competitive workplace that we kind of have to deal with. But when we think about it, most of the things that we develop, the folks here in this room, aren't through research projects. It's through working with our clients, working in the community. Those are things that are learned on the job. And if we want to share them with everybody, if we want everybody to learn from that, we need to start letting go, opening up our hands, and holding them out, holding that information out to our peers. Finally, a collaborative mindset is an outward focus rather than an inward focus. So we become curious and we explore how the ideas of others can improve outcomes versus that inward focus, maybe where we've been in the past. It kind of ends up with the same old results. So some specifics in practice. Just a few to get started. Developing a shared vocabulary. I'm currently working to develop the new kind of web-based master planning guidelines. So we're taking what has traditionally been static paper, static electronic documents, and turning that into data deliverables that will then be able to be interacted with by users on Confluence. John Valine's going to talk about that later. But folks will be able to actually get in and look at that data. But as part of that process, we've been coordinating closely with the stream assessment protocol being developed by Brian Murphy and Mary Powell, and as well with Jacobs on determining problems and how problems relate to improvements within the system. But what we've realized is, as simple as it all is, we're all on the same page, really, but still there's a lot of terminology that we're not necessarily seeing the same definitions. So in a collaborative environment, defining that vocabulary is critical. Again, sharing our successes, but most importantly, sharing our failures. I'm just going to throw this out today as a challenge to you all. Let's think about, as a community, how we can safely share our failures with one another so that we can improve our projects. Look to team members for big ideas and innovation. Just be genuinely curious and see what they bring to the table. And technical systems and quality assurance teams, just something to think about. This is something we did in EWP. And this is really where this collaboration thing came about for me. When we started that whole process, when we would come in and do design reviews, engineering reviews, teams felt judged. They felt like we were being critical. We changed our kind of communication style about that, really to the point of we would like to make sure that opportunities aren't missed on your job. Yeah, we'll look at the technical because we don't want to see you fail either. But we were able to come in with an open mindset without any kind of our head already being in the weeds of the project details, and bring in that idea that there's an opportunity here, did you think about it? We never enforced that on the design teams. But by the end of EWP, people were calling us, asking us to be a part of their projects, whether to go out on construction and take a look or look at their designs. They wanted that. And that was all created through trust. And that's what we need to create as a community. So, simple, rhetorical, multiple choice question. Collaboration is needed in which of the following? Assessment, planning, design, construction, adaptive management. Well, if we want our projects to bring big ideas, if we don't want our projects slanted towards just geomorphology or just vegetation or just engineering, we've got to bring everybody to the table every single time for every one of those. So, what drives our closed-minded old way of thinking? We could have talked a little bit about kind of some of that thinking and how we interact with each other. But for me, what prevents us from effectively working together? Two big things: fear and ego. So fear of being left out, I like to call it DOMO instead of FOMO, the disappointment of missing out. So many of us, we work on amazingly cool projects on a regular basis. Sometimes they aren't all amazingly cool, but there's a lot of fun stuff to work on. And we feel jealous, we feel like we're missing out on something, we feel like the project might be missing out on something if we aren't working on it. But sometimes we aren't picked, sometimes we aren't selected, and sometimes we're just plain old too busy. So it's in realizing that we're a community and that we're improving everybody, we're raising the bar for the whole group here. To know that those projects we aren't working on, they're in good hands and they're gonna be successful. So that's what raising the bar is all about. The fear of getting it wrong, don't be afraid, is all I can tell you. From my experience, when things have gone wrong, tried something, the pain is always a little bit less than what you think it's gonna be. And fear itself is just feeling the pain before it's actually happened. So just think about it that way. And you know what? This room is filled with incredibly smart people. Take the chance, and most of the time you guys are gonna succeed, and at failure, it's not even gonna be something you have to face. Fear of no work, half the room is consultants. We know what that's like, thinking like I'm not gonna have enough work to keep myself or my staff busy. And imposter syndrome. One of the things I've realized growing up and getting older, there's so many things for me to know, and I don't know them all. And there was a fear that, oh my gosh, I'm gonna get identified as not knowing it all. Well, guess what? We all feel that way. So bring your best, just bring your expertise. That's what needs to come. On the ego side, it's kind of the same things you might think it is. A desire for recognition, hiding failure because, hey, it's a really competitive environment, right? I don't want somebody to know I failed. They might not hire me the next time. And I think, on a personal level, work becomes who we are and not what we do. I can't tell you how many times I've heard in this industry, it's not personal, but it's personal. But I've made it personal. So anyway, I think it's something that we all can work on because what we do isn't who we are. We're much bigger than that. So, no fears. I have some antidotes to fear and ego. On the fear side, generosity and compassion. Serving others, looking to others' interests, listening to others. It's surprising how fast fear disappears when you focus on others. From the ego side, well, egolessness, of course, right? And curiosity and playfulness. One of the things you may have heard me say if you've been in a meeting with me, depends on who I'm talking to, but leave the peacock feathers at the door when you walk in. Listen to others. Chime in when you've got good ideas. Look at those opportunities through the lens of curiosity and playfulness and opportunities to learn. So when we do that, whether we're doing the work or not, because we want our whole community to succeed, whether we're there and doing it. We need to raise the bar. We need to work together. We need to support one another, whether we're competitors or not. And it doesn't mean there's not competition. It doesn't mean that I'm not trying to be the best that I can possibly be. But what it means is we're going to move from a world of mine individually to a world of ours as a community. Because the people out there who see our projects, that's a reflection of our community. So every good project is a reflection of everybody in this room. That's why we need to raise the bar. We need to collaborate. And I guarantee you at least 50%, if not more of this room, have been thinking this since this slide went up. Stop, collaborate, and listen. I hope. But anyway, we're going to raise the bar, and we need to change our mindset, because ultimately, the quality of what we do depends on our motivation. So, thank you.